Hello, my name is Zach Braun, and this is my fifth class in the OMS CS program. This class is CS 6263, Cyber Physical Systems, and I'm taking it summer 2019. The paper that I'm presenting on is a systematic framework to generate invariants for anomaly detection in industrial control systems. The paper's background is the authors come from the Siemens Corporate Technology, Singapore University of Technology and Design, and Institute for Security Science, as well as the technology group at the Imperial College in London. In this paper, I will be going over several topics. First, the brief introduction of industrial control systems. Second, the general architecture of these industrial control systems. Third, current practices that are in place at industrial control systems for anomaly detection. Fourth, the systematic framework for invariant rule generation that this paper proposes, as well as two case studies where the authors tested their framework on real-world case studies. The first one, and the fifth topic on here, the water distribution system, and then the secure water treatment testbed. And finally, we can have a talk about why is this important and how their framework compared to baseline models. Industrial control systems are typically used in critical infrastructure. So they're systems that are designed to monitor and control industrial processes. Those can range from the water treatment plant in the bottom left, the oil pipeline in the middle here, and the bottom right power grid. Because these are part of critical infrastructure, maintaining normal operations is very critical, as deviations from normal operation in industrial control systems have the potential to cause significant physical damage to equipment, the environment, and even human life. And to do this, the active monitoring of the invariant rules that provide normal operations allows for a greater level of security and dependability. Early detection of anomalous states allows for timely actions so that they can shut down the system early or just isolate the issue. So the invariant rules are typically and today are made by the system engineers that created the systems. So there's a couple problems with this. First is that it's manually intensive. Second is it's costly. And third, it can be error prone. Additionally, as the subsystems increase, the number of subsystems increase, the complexity of the overall system increases, making it very hard for humans to account for all anomalous states. And so this paper proposes a machine learning model, a machine learning method to generate these invariant rules from the operational data logs. So why is it important to detect anomalous states? Well, the Industrial Control Systems Cyber Emergency Response Team reports that in 2014 there were 245 attacks. 2015 there were 295 attacks. In 2016 there were 290 attacks. And all of these attacks are targeting industrial control systems. Some of the most notable ones are the Stuxnet worm, which was used to infect PLCs like we use in the class, and caused the centrifuges in Iran in 2010 to spin a lot faster and for a lot longer than intended, and actually ended up tearing themselves apart and damaging the Iranian facilities. There's a German steel mill which suffered physical damage in 2014 when their furnaces continued to run, caused by a bug in their system, a cyber attack. And then maybe most notably in Ukraine, The city of Kiev, which is the capital, lost 1/5 of its power capacity in 2016. This is rumored to be from a cyber attack as well. And this blackout ended up affecting 225,000 citizens. So this is an overview of the general architecture of industrial control systems. In the past, isolated systems existed in an air-gapped network or an isolated network, also called like on-premise, and that really allowed for it was a lot harder to get inside their network because it was all isolated, no connection, no problem. Recently, though, to achieve operational gains, industrial control systems have begun to become interconnected cyber-physical systems. The remote access for monitoring and control obviously increases operational efficiencies, but increases the cybersecurity threats present. Compromised options or a failure has the potential to cause significant physical damage to national infrastructure and possible cascading failures, resulting in impacts that can include large-scale power outages, disruption to health services, and compromise public transport safety, as well as environmental damages and even the direct loss of life. This is what a typical industrial control system looks like. It consists of devices and subsystems organized by a physical, control, and supervisory control layers. Using a water treatment plant as an example for the industrial control system, let's go through the architecture. The field devices in the physical layer report and modify physical process states through sensor readings. For a water treatment plant, as this example over here on the left, this would be the water level flow and the water quality sensors. Based on the received data from these sensors, the control layer issues commands to the actuators to perform specific actions. In the water treatment plant example, this would be turning on or off pumps or opening and closing valves. Finally, at the top, the supervisory control contains engineering workstations and data historian components that directly communicate with the control to provide higher level supervisory monitoring and control functions, and may also interface with a wider corporate system for remote access monitoring. This is typically where the anomaly detection systems arise. Over here on the left is a picture of what a corporate system might be able to see from a remote access. And so the current practices of anomaly detection, there's several different ways. The first way is device-based, which is fingerprinting based on message response time or operation time measurements. Program-based, which checks the control or data flow of the PLCs. And then network-based, which examines the network traffic, such as the header, payload, timing, the sequence number, and the sequence of messages. And then the last one is process-based, and it views the physical process variables, sensor readings in the PLCs, and then calculates, based on predictive modeling, the residual error. And it uses things such as autoregression, linear regression, linear dynamic state space models, neural network-based regression, LSTMs, which are long-term, short-term memory networks. And all these together, basically those models are just predicting ahead of time, and then there's an error component, which is what's actually happening, and that's called residual error. So there's a couple problems with each of these. For the device-based, it's less general and really only for specific devices and protocols. For the process-based, the residual error adds a strict threshold between normal and abnormal. Recent studies have shown that attackers utilize this ambiguous decision boundary to remain undetected, and a proposed alternative to the residual error method is to use the known physical conditions that must hold invariant rule-based anomaly detection. With this design, any observed physical process that breaks these rules is classified as an anomaly. These rules are typically defined manually and are both costly and error-prone. Furthermore, there are hidden invariant rules that are difficult for human beings to recognize, especially across several subsystems of an industrial control system. In order to combat all the issues with the current practices of anomaly detection, this paper proposes a purely data-driven approach to derive invariant rules for anomaly detection. So let's go on to that. The systematic framework for invariant generation involves two steps. The paper proposes the systematic framework for invariant generation from an arbitrary data log from an industrial control system. The first step is predicate generation. This creates a set of meaningful predicates from the data log for the construction of the predicate set. The second is invariant rule mining. This is with the predicate set from the previous step. It transforms the data log into a database of meaningful invariant rules which are used for anomaly detection. Now let's talk about the first step, which is predicate generation. Once again, predicate generation creates a set of meaningful predicates from the data log for the construction of the predicate set. So there's basically two types of variables, categorical and continuous. Categorical variables such as actuators or pumps are fairly straightforward, and as you can see in this example here, you can just take a pump's different options, V1, V2, or to the length of it, V sub L, and transform that into a data or into a set. So if U is a pump, then U of T equals on and U of T equals off would be the set. The harder one is the continuous variables, which represent sensor readings on an infinite domain and are meaningless and prohibitively expensive to compute. Therefore, there are two different strategies that the authors have come up with. The first is the distribution-driven strategy, and the second is the event-driven strategy. The distribution-driven strategy uses the industrial control system's control state to utilize the fact that the update of a sensor reading is at a specific and predictable timestamp. And this can be modeled as a Gaussian distribution in the data logs. It can infer a K from all of the Gaussian distributions that are computed from the data logs, and then fits that to a Gaussian mixture model with K distributions, using and fitting that with an expected maximization algorithm, and then comparing fitted Gaussian mixture models and selecting the minimum BIC score out of those distributions. That then gives it a bounded predicated set. A BIC score, really quick, is a Bayesian information criterion score. It's used in machine learning to denote how much information is being learned between each step. And then the event-driven strategy it updates on an actuator and occurs at critical values of sensor reading, such as an example would be a pump, which is switched from on and off, which would trigger an event or a reading. It fits a linear regression model over the timestamps, where timestamps of when these events occur for each sensor. And then this also gives a bounded predicate set. Now let's look at step 2, which is invariant rule mining. Invariant rule mining, basically, with the predicated set, transforms the data log into a database of meaningful invariant rules, which are used for anomaly detection. From the previous predicate generation step, we can get a predicate set which is large and consists of all the generated predicates for actuator states and sensor readings for the industrial control systems. Now we have to sift through the set and capture all meaningful invariant rules. First, we must define what is a meaningful invariant rule. It must meet two criteria: the minimum support condition and the non-redundant condition. The minimum support condition guarantees that the invariant rule achieves statistical significance, or else there would be a lot of false alarms occurring. The second one, the non-redundant condition, prevents the derivation of multiple redundant rules. The invariant rule mining generation meaningful invariant rules from the item set database can be treated as a classical rule mining problem, which has been used popularly to find interesting relationships between products and catalogs. These such algorithms exist at large online marketplaces such as Amazon or eBay, and basically it's just finding relationships between products and when they go in the cart and consumers that are interested. And basically from there, the invariant rule mining can be split into two steps: the candidate item set mining and the invariant rule generation. The candidate item set mining is an objective is to find all the close frequent item sets with multiple minimum support thresholds in the item set database. The invariant rule generation is whose objective is to extract all the invariant rules from the candidate item sets found in the previous set. So just to briefly go back over those last two, is the candidate item set mining finds all the close frequent item sets with multiple minimum support thresholds. So that means that these are close frequent item sets that have statistical significance. Invariant rule generation extracts all the invariant rules from the candidate item sets that were selected in step 2. There's also quite a bit of parameter tuning for the invariant rule mining based on training versus testing logs, and this obviously affects the subsequent generalization of the algorithm. So now let's examine how this algorithm can work in a case study. So the water distribution system case study, they tested it in what was called the WADI, or the Water Distribution System Testbed. It's basically a scaled down version of a real urban water distribution, and it has the capacity to output 10 gallons per minute. Here they compared two new anomaly detection algorithms with two baseline models of the design-based invariant rules and residual error-based modules. So the design-based invariant rules was created by the system engineers at the water distribution testbed, and the system engineers came up with 22 invariant rules. And then the residual error-based model utilized a long short-term memory network consisting of 256 nodes, and was used there to detect the residual error in the anomaly detection algorithm. And the final one is the data-driven invariant rules, which is what this paper is proposing. The criterion that they tested on was the true positive rate, which was the fraction of anomalies successfully identified; the false positive rate, which is the fraction of normal data points that are misclassified as anomalous by the model; the normalized true positive rate, which is the number of attach points for different attack types varies, so the authors had to normalize these successfully identified anomalies across the different attack vectors. So as you can see here, the data-driven invariant rules had the highest true positive rate and the lowest false positive rate. as well as the highest normalized true positive rate. So those results are that the data-driven invariant rules perform best when compared to both the residual error and the design-based invariant rules. Just to be clear, the authors did use a variety of different attacks based on the aforementioned International Standards Committee, their attack logs, their cyber attack logs. So the next case study is on the secure water treatment testbed, which similarly to the water distribution system testbed is a scaled down version of a secure water treatment facility. It has a 6-stage filtration process to purify water. Once again, the authors compared the new anomaly detection algorithm with the two baseline models, the design-based invariant rules and the residual error-based models. Once again, the system engineers created the design-based invariant rules and came up with 38 invariant rules. The residual error-based model also utilized a long short-term memory network, and the data-driven invariant rules, which was in this paper, is the third anomaly detection algorithm that was tested. Just a quick recap is the true positive rate is the fraction of anomalies that were successfully identified. The false positive rate was a fraction of normal data points that are misclassified as anomalous by the model. And the normalized true positive rate is the number of attach points with different attack types varies. The authors normalize these against, basically the authors normalize across the different attack vectors to see the successfully identified anomalies and not to be biased by a type of cyber attack. Once again, the results are that the data-driven invariant rules perform best when compared to both the residual error and the design-based invariant rules. Here you can see that the true positive rate for the data-driven invariant rules was higher by about 0.03, as well as the false positive rate was significantly lower, and the normalized true positive rate was higher by about 0.2. In conclusion, the data-driven model performed better in both case studies than the decision-based and the residual error baseline anomaly detection models. The data-driven model, to summarize, the data-driven model combines machine learning and data mining techniques. And this is good because it leads to low human effort and input, and as the complexity of the subsystem increases, that can lead to errors and anomalous states that were not thought of by humans before. The second thing is that it discovers invariant rules across several subsystems. This largely increases the difficulty of successfully stealthy attack injections, which may hide in one or multiple subsystems, basically hiding among the complexity of the industrial control systems. The false positive rate can be controlled by parameter tuning, and that's based on a validation data log that is free from anomalies. This is important because it means that in the water distribution system, you can tune the parameters for water distribution versus the purification process that we saw in the second case study, so the secure water treatment testbed. The data-driven model demonstrates superior performance on both real-world industrial control system case studies, and it This is impressive because it's against typically used residual error-based anomaly detection models. The system can be applied generally across several industrial control systems. So as you saw in the case studies, it was able to be applied to the water distribution system, the secure water treatment. I'd be interested in hearing if the authors applied to like a power grid or oil pipeline, and hearing how how it affects there. But based on this paper, generally it looks like it would be able to apply there because it's only dependent on the general control dynamics of an industrial control system. Furthermore, the authors believe that it can be applied generally to the overall trend of IoT in industries such as health systems, autonomous vehicles, building management systems, and the authors are looking forward to examining this feasibility as they continue their work. Thank you for your time, and thank you for listening.